Hello, welcome to A Layman Looks at the Word with Hal Richardson. We're continuing in our study of cosmic conflict. This is lesson 7. We saw last time how God had delivered his people into captivity because of their listening to Balaam and finally succumbing to false gods. This took hundreds of years. But Satan figured that he had probably already won now because they would not have the Messiah's coming if they couldn't be a nation. At the beginning of the dynasty of the kings, God had promised David that his throne would last forever. In 2 Samuel 7:13, "He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee. And thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever." According to all these words and according to all this vision, so did Nathan, who was the prophet at the time, speak unto David. Yet we see the last of the line of David, Jehoiakim and Coniah, which was Jehoiachin, was cursed by God because of all his evil doings, and God said none of his seed would ever sit on the throne of David in Jeremiah 22. With Israel and Judah taken captive, and the curse on the line of David, the temple destroyed, Satan thought that he had stopped the coming of Messiah, and Israel would not be a nation anymore. Yet once again, God has a plan. He who lives outside of time and space, who made everything, has a plan. Daniel was one of the captives taken off to Babylon. He and his friends, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, were examined and kept alive to serve Babylon in the school of the magicians because of their wisdom, for God was with them in Daniel 1. Daniel himself was about 18 at this time. The king of Babylon was Nebuchadnezzar. He had a dream that troubled him, and he called for all of his magicians and his astrologers and his sorcerers and his Chaldeans to show him and interpret the dream. This is around 584 BC in Daniel chapter 2. They told the king to tell them his dream and they would interpret it, but the king could not remember. They could not tell him the dream, much less the interpretation. So the king ordered them all to be killed, including Daniel. And Daniel told the captain of the guard that if they would just give him time, his God would reveal to him the dream. And that night, after prayer with his 3 friends, a vision came to Daniel, and they took him before the king. And Daniel praised God and approached the powerful king with high respect. And he pled for the lives of all the wise men. And he told the king that God knew all the secrets and revealed to Nebuchadnezzar that he dreamed of a statue with a gold head, arms and chest of silver, belly and thighs of brass, legs of iron, feet of iron and clay. Then a stone cut without hands smote the statue in the feet and broke the statue to bits that blew away in the wind. And then the stone grew to a great mountain and filled the earth. In Daniel 2 and 8, we see the interpretation. All of the metal parts of the statue were kingdoms, with Nebuchadnezzar as the head of gold, and after that would come Medo-Persia, the chest and the arms of silver, and then Greece, the belly and the thighs of brass, and then Rome with the legs of iron. And about the feet of iron and clay, Daniel 2:43, And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all of these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. So Nebuchadnezzar fell down at Daniel's feet and worshipped him. And he said that Daniel's God was the God of gods, and he made Daniel the head over all the wise men of Babylon. Daniel 2:46-49. When Noah had his vision, circa 2340 BC, and he wrote it down in his testament, which was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, he saw while sleeping at the first fruits incident 8 world empires as metal pyramids, trees as the nations of the world, and a fig tree as the coming Israel. All the empires would somehow oppress Israel and the nations of the earth. The reason that Nebuchadnezzar was not shown the first 2 that Noah saw is that they had already transpired. So the first one that Noah saw was stones or lead, which was the ancient Babylon and Nimrod when he was the king. Next was Egypt, which was the clay and aluminum. Next world empire of metal pyramids correspond with that which God revealed to Daniel. Gold, which was Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. Silver, which was the Medes and Persians. Copper, brass, by the way, is copper and zinc, and Alexander's Greece, and then iron was Rome. The only difference is that the last 2 which Noah saw, the lead, Babylon revived, and the clay of the land of the crescent moon. On Daniel's statue, they were combined in the feet, but it was said of iron and clay. In the book of Gad the seer, he sees a vision of the 2 empires of the end times. Gad was a prophet at the time of David, and his book is part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Both of the pictures here of Noah's pyramids and of Gad's dreams were borrowed from prophecywatchers.com. The book of Gad the seer, circa 1000 BC, and he was a holy man in the time of King David, he sees a vision of the future, and the golden gate of Jerusalem representing God's kingdom. 2 cows are approaching the city, representing Israel and Judah, and leading the 2 cows are a donkey and a camel, unclean animals which are leading them astray. There is a great earthquake, and the Lamb blows the donkey and the camel to the moon. Above Jerusalem is God as the Son, with a lamb slain from the foundation of the world on his shoulders. And above the city on the other side is a crescent moon, representing the kingdom of God on the earth. The moon is supposed to be full, representing the reflection of God, who is the sun. With the crescent moon is the donkey and the camel that have diminished the light of God. And Gad also sees that the Lamb comes to earth to redeem man to God, and then returns to God, and yet still stays here on the earth. The Lamb destroys the camel and the donkey and grinds them to powder, and they blow away. And then the Lamb establishes his kingdom on the earth. The camel represents an end-time anti-Semitic religion whose symbol is the crescent moon, which is also an ancient Babylon symbol. The donkey represents another end-time anti-Semitic religion who is headquartered in Chittim or Edom, which was ancient Rome. They will not be stable together, but very powerful in the last world empire. We will discuss these visions and their prophecies later on in this series in more detail. So now back to Daniel 10. Daniel has been the chancellor to several kings, and he reads in Jeremiah that the captivity of Israel and Judah was going to be over in 70 years. Daniel earnestly prayed to God about it for 3 weeks in mourning and impartial fasting. Daniel had been in Babylon for 45 years now when Cyrus gave the decree to let the Jews rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. He had to be about 63. 25 more years was a long time, and Daniel was visited while he was by the Tigris River. In Daniel 10:5, I lifted up my eyes, and behold, I looked, and a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with the fine gold of Uphaz. His body was also like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like the color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like a voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and I saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, and my face towards the ground. And behold, a hand touched me, which sat upon me, upon my knees, and upon the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. And he said unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thy heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. This angel of God is not named. However, in a previous chapter, Gabriel came. But regardless, the point here is that Daniel was a very important man and doing God's business, and Satan had withstood this angel by the demons, led by the prince of Persia, for 3 weeks, 21 full days. And Michael, the prince of the armies of God, had to come and fight these demons under the prince to let the angel through to come and talk to Daniel. Spiritual wars like these are going on 24/7 all around us. We need to be aware of these things, for all spiritual things affect the physical. We're going to have to close there for today. Remember this, Jesus is the answer to everything that God has put out. Everything in the cosmic conflict, he has won through the cross. And we'll learn that in this series. But if you don't know him personally, ask him in your life today. For he does stand at the door of your heart and knock. Call upon his name to be saved. This is Hal Richardson. Join me next week. We'll continue with Cosmic Conflict. Bye for now.